slide too, or just you?
Does mic happen for Shima?
Hello, hello? A button on the microphone. Ah, there we are. Well, good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing this morning? How are you enjoying Conscious Life Expo? Yeah, well, we're so happy that you're here. You, of course, are the reason why we're here. I'm Shima Moore, co-founder, and I've been here every year, so I've watched things change and shift and grow, and I'm so excited to have astrology as such a featured track this year. We talked about that early on, but I couldn't get it happening for a long, long time. So this year, I'm so excited, and I'm really excited to introduce you to our next speaker because he's somebody that I have seen online. I'd only met online up to now. It's a wonderful thing about expos. We get to meet people face to face, heart to heart. It makes a big difference, don't you think? Yeah. How many of you here are first-timers? All right, of course. Yes. So, well, thank you for coming. We hope to see you back again and again. And so anyway, Gemini Brett, for me, when I watched his slides, when I listened to his explanation of things, it made sense. It really connected the as above, so below. He does that in his school. He does that in his storytelling. He does that in everything, and which is why I was so happy to get him here this year to share his love of the starry worlds with you. He connects heaven and earth, and he will connect you to mysteries beyond and important in this time. So please put your hands together and give a warm, wonderful Conscious Life Expo welcome to Gemini Brett, the storyteller.
Thank you, Shima. All right, thanks everyone for being here. We're going to take a whirlwind tour in these 88 minutes we have together. 88 like the amount of Earth days it takes Mercury to orbit the sun, or 88 the number of keys in a grand piano. And I'm going to start there in the grand piano and the 12-tone harmony of the Western tradition. So I'll ask you to open your ears and your eyes to the mandala on the screen, and most importantly, open your hearts and open your minds. Music's much scratchier than it's intended to be, but things get pretty scratchy here in the Earth game, yeah? So why is my school the School of Earth Astrology? Because of these many amazing planets in our local neighborhood, the Jupiters, the Venuses, and Neptunes. The most important planet is the one that you chose. Or perhaps she chose you. I'm not sure how it works, but I'm talking about Mama Earth, who in astrology we symbolize like this: the cross of matter inside the circle of spirit. For aren't we spiritual beings having an embodied experience here in matter, this place with the appearance of time and space, which is necessary if you want to make moves and grow. And as you grow, the one and only thing, spirit, grows. I think that's the point of this place. All right, today we're going to take this quick tour and we're going to explore the mysteries through the lenses of the sacred sciences known as the quadrivium, which are astronomy, harmony, geometry, and arithmetic. And I know those last words especially can be a little scary for those who survived local programming and the thing they called school. But this is the sacred sciences of number. So astronomy is known as number in time and space. And therefore it's composed of these things below: harmony, number in time, frequency, vibration, you know. Geometry, number in space, and arithmetic, number itself. So we were taught number in quantities alone, but number has quality as well. And we want to find our way there today. Pythagoras said all is number, or perhaps all is one. It's quite a mystery. So I should have put a little warning out front. There's going to be a little bit math today. But we're going to keep it really simple. So here's your first pop quiz. What is the number you see on the screen? Anyone? 10. Okay, cool. So we're here. Thank you very much. Yeah, 10. Can I see by a show of hands anyone in the room who's been taught or at least heard that the 12-sign zodiac is a completely arbitrary thing? That someone just chose 12 at some point, and we could have chosen, 13. Well, so not many of you. It's something I heard just a couple nights ago, once again. And I would say if that was the trip, I would find at least somewhere in the world evidence of a 10-sign zodiac, I imagine. The woman on the screen has raised her hands to show you that the human design has 5 fingers on 2 hands to make 10, which is why many of our number systems count by tens. Now, in the workshop tomorrow, I'll be showing you how to count 12s and 14s on your hand as well, and some cultures use 20s and 60s, but in my 10 plus years of research, I still have yet to find a zodiac of 10 signs. The 12-sign zodiac is in no way arbitrary, and that's what I want to show you here today. A few different ways to experience the truth that creation creates in 12s. So the 1 and O thing, which, it might be the code that could get us stuck in the binary matrix anyway, isn't the way that we can play astrology. But it will help us start. I actually see this number on the screen as 1 and 1. I call it 1 the and the 1. So it, I guess, looks a little bit more like 11 to me, although not really. What's 1 and 1 make? Gemini. But of course, we were taught 1 plus 1 is 2, and this was the first crime, and not in quantity, right? The measurable truth of number, 1 plus 1 is 2. But if we speak about quality, and I'll ask everyone here to just kind of open yourself and consider oneness, right? I mean, at the Conscious Life Expo, that's a quick realization, right? I'm sure you have all contemplated this idea of oneness, the one thing that ever was, is, and will be, the all, which I like to call spirit, a subjective term, but when I say spirit, for me, it's the one and only thing that ever was, is, and will be. And this image of one line, which I call one thee or one ray, it doesn't really describe oneness nearly as well as this circle does. So in astrology, we call this the circle of spirit. You see the circle featured in this word one, or only, uno, and many other places. But here's a fun riddle. Which point on the circumference of the circle is the center of the circumference of the circle? Where does the circle begin and end? And in a sense, only at one point, which all of those circumference points share. And that's the center of the circle, yes? So for those of you who practice or study astrology, you know this glyph, the circumpunct. It's the glyph we use these days to depict the sun. To find the center of a circle, you actually need circles and lines, which is a fun truth from the geometry realm. And we're going to get back to that shape. But I actually want to turn this image here into the truth of curves and lines, right? So lines are measurable things and therefore represent quantity, right? This is a very important function of human being, that kind of logical side of self. But curves are quite immeasurable, right? If I want to measure the circumference of that circle, the length of that circle, I just have to bring my scissors out and cut it and turn it into a line, right? I can bring my ruler to that. Or I can play with this magical rainbow thing called pi. Yeah, we all remember the circumference of the circle is pi times diameter, the radius squared times pi, the surface area. Pi, this thing they call irrational, which sounds bad, but it just means it can't be expressed by a ratio. And there's a better term that the mathematicians use, which is a transcendental number. So curves are transcendental. And Earth is a very curvy thing. This is probably true in all incarnational experience. And yet we want to use these two facilities. Like all my students, like we study lines, we study path into the chart, we study technique. But I always like to say the chart first and foremost should be a portal that opens your intuitive gifts. So use your curves, right? And trust that just as much as the science. We should keep the sacred science scientific by honoring the sacred. Well, I want to talk about this horizontal line. What's in a chart wheel represents the ground beneath our feet, separating the visible realm above from the invisible realm below. It's the beginning of these 12 houses we use. Why 12? Is it some arbitrary thing? Well, let's start with fourness, which is an image of earth. Again, the cross of matter inside the circle of spirit. The chart is a map of the soul, but very importantly, it's a map of the sky in the moment of time in a place on earth. The meridian line, and in this point we'll speak about the zenith above our head and the nadir down beneath our feet. And everyone, if you would, please close your eyes. And you can use your arms if you like, or just your consciousness, but I'd like for you to stretch yourself up above your head. And feel the star that is at the top of our sky. For those who wish to know, the swan is up there right now, the Northern Cross, the Milky Way is right above our heads right now. All right? And I want you to imagine, like, while you're holding that in our local space, picture somebody that you love that's in a different place right now. And just know that they have a different star above their head. Yeah, the experience of any moment is unique for any place. So this is something we are sharing. The above is unique, it's particular. But while your hands are still up, your energy is up there, please also send your energy down below, down to the center of earth. The loved one you're considering, they will reach down there to meet you. The below, the center of the earth, is the one place we all share. All right, for those of you with your hands up, please bring the energy from beneath your feet to the center of the earth, the whole, the place all earthlings share, and bring the particular, the above, the heavenly essence, down and meet in front of your heart in prayer. Marrying the above and below. Okay, thank you for practicing that with me. It's an important truth that we actually measure the placements of the planets and the signs, not from the surface of the earth, where we live and breathe and can witness the heavenly happenings, but from the center of the earth, that place where we are all connected. So let me put this below here in the center. The truth is, astrology measures our experience of Earth's experience of the heavenly happenings. So the rationalists will tell you, Jupiter doesn't pull on you any more than somebody in this room does, which, by the way, is not necessarily true. But astrology, again, measures from the center of the earth. Do you think Jupiter and Earth are influencing one another? You, my friends, are an earthling, at least the part of you that I see on this chair. And so as Jupiter plays with Earth, he plays with you and all of us. Do you see what I mean? So that's a truth that I want you to take here, if it's not something that you've unwrapped already, that astrology is showing us how we experience Earth's experience of the heavenly happenings. So if you're in a place in April where you can't see the solar eclipse, just because you don't see it doesn't mean you don't be it. It's happening at the center of the earth. It's happening to earth. It's happening to all earthlings, yes? All right, well, let's start from the beginning. You know, I was taught in school that before 1 comes 0. I don't think they taught me that first, because it's a really weird thing. And you know, the 0 is actually pretty new to like the Western consciousness and to number systems in general. Look at your keyboard when you go home, you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, right? Because everything starts with the 1, or does it? Does it start with everything or nothing? All right, you got to really pay attention to the center of the screen here. We're going to watch the great miracle of all that ever was, is, and will be, emerging from the void. The point. What's the point? And you want to go a little extra dimensional, perhaps you're just looking at a line from the top, you know? But there's this emergence, this amazing miracle that really none could explain. Some go to old books, some go to big bangs, you know? And from this source point emerges everything. So this is the emergence of spirit, the one and only thing that ever was, is, and will be. Maybe we'll see this as Earth's orbit of the sun, although it's not quite circular, but an ellipse. Or here we are on Earth, right? So we watch sun orbiting us, moving through the 12 signs of the Zodiacs, which, contrary to popular belief, I am sure, are not coming to us from the heavens, but are rather emanating from the crystal core of the earth outwards. And this, my friends, is the key to the tropical zodiac. I can't believe or prove that it's true, but I can't prove it's not true either. And we'll see a little science at the end of this thing that actually supports this idea that Earth, and I'll suggest every planet, has a crystal core, a hexagonal core with 6 flats and 6 points. That's the 12 signs, the 12 zone energy field. All right. When you look at circles on the screen, we don't want to get stuck in 2D. Ashima took us to the 12th dimension the other day. We want to be at least 3-dimensional here, all right? So I want you to also see these circles as spheres. Well, which point on the surface of the sphere is the center of the surface of the sphere? The same problem holds, right? But of course, the sphere has that center point, has that source point. And of course, in Earth, that's the center of our planet. So this circumpunct, I find to be just the most amazing thing. I feel like I can fall into it like this, you know? And I love the image of, like, I spend a lot of time with stars in the sky, and there are these little points, and our sun's a disk. But if you and I get in the spaceship and head to, where you want to go? We head to Vega. All right? In the rear view, our sun's going to start getting really small until it's just a point, and Vega's going to get big until it's a disk. You know what I mean? So I can feel this like kind of movement when I stare into the circumpunct as well. There's a great riddle or question I ask my students, because we all study geometry together as well, which is, where is the line in the circle? So importantly, when you sweep a circle with a compass, the geometer's tool, you have to open the compass first. So you're really creating a line in that way, right? You're creating a measurable thing, as then you sweep the compass with its fixed arm and its moving arm to create this transcendental, immeasurable, spiritual thing. So importantly, spirit must emanate from source in a linear way. But I would suggest it does so in every direction at once. And that in some ways, each of us are like one of these infinite radii, the radius of this infinite circle or sphere, you see? So there's this emanation from source point, just everything. I don't feel comes from nothing. I feel personally that in the beginning was everything. Sometimes you can actually see the circumpunct in the sky. I think you could see it before the chemtrails even. But it's an amazing thing to behold, where you actually see this sun glyph in the heavens in this way. I feel that the sun is our local representative of the one, even though representative is not a word. And I want to refer to the word of Hermes. So this is from the Emerald Tablet of Hermes. I'm sure that's all too small on the screen to read, so I'll read it for you. This is Isaac Newton's translation, by the way, who was far too much a mystic to be considered a Newtonian in the way that we use that word these days. The first rubric is, "'Tis true without lying, certain and most true. That which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below, to do the miracles of one only thing." So we hear this a lot, as above, so below, right? And this is where that comes from, perhaps first, although in many places, like mapping the constellations on the earth and our sacred sites around the world, we practice as above, so below. We measure the heavenly happenings from the center of the earth, as above, so below. But what about as below, so above? And this is one of my first teachers, Kaylin Castell, who spoke here yesterday, often says it this way: we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us. Right? Not only are we audience members of the Celestial Symphony, we hold instruments in our hands and we are invited to jam. As below, so above. And most importantly, to do the miracles of one only thing. What is that one only thing? Now, intriguingly, the last rubric of this puzzle, the Emerald Tablets of Hermes, reads, "That which I have said of the operation of the sun is accomplished and ended." Is Hermes telling us that the sun is the one only thing? I feel it is our local representative of the one only thing, this circle of spirit. Right, so you'll hear people speaking about the sun moving through the constellation of Ophiuchus, which I hope we have time to get to today. And how do they know? Have you ever tried to see which stars the sun is aligned to? You will go blind. I mean, I have teachers, or I should just say people at conferences I see that I respect, that are like, if you want to know where you are in the precession of the equinoxes, just wake up on spring equinox and watch what constellation the sun's in. It's like, apparently you've never tried that, sir, right? Because you're not blind. Yeah, I mean, this is an important truth. The ancient zodiacs, they were all lunar because we can watch the moon move through the stars, yeah? We find our way to the light of the sun eventually, but the sun is this blinding force. And though, the sun actually does get further and closer to Earth throughout the year, that's very hard to tell. The size of the sun changes, the speed of the sun changes, which is a little easier to track, but it really is this kind of constant force, right? It's Earth's motion that causes the sun to rise and set. It's Earth's motions that causes the sun to move through the constellations and through the signs, which are different things. And so I feel every solar system has at its heart, like a central fire that speaks of like the local broadcasting unit for the one and only thing. The second rubric of Hermes' tablet says, "All things have been and arose from one through the mediation of one." And I feel that's this image. In astrology, I'm called to draw the moon glyph often when I used to do handwritten stuff, especially. And I always flail with it, or I used to, until I realized that the crescent of soul, as we call it, is simply born through two circles of the same size. Right? And now I can move those two circles all over the screen, and we would see that this beautiful crescent shape has many, many forms. Just watch the moon smile, grow, and shrink throughout the course of the month. Here we see the Vesca Piscis, the Mandorla, the sacred gate, the Yoni, which is the place of all creation. And here we see a random green screen that's really not meant to be in this slideshow. So I feel that these two things, these two circles, are the sun and the moon. And it's too much to get into here, but I've come to believe that the moon and the sun are like two parts of one thing. And they are kind of the incarnational instruments that help us get here, embodied here on earth in matter in this place with the appearance of time and space. Why would we do that? To grow. So spirit is the only thing that ever was, is, and will be. It can't grow. It's everything. And therefore, inherently, it's nothing. It's kind of boring. But somehow spirit considered itself. You ever taken a good look at yourself? Well, who are you looking at and who's looking? So spirit did this, yeah? And does it again and again and again and again. And nobody can explain this miracle either. But as soon as spirit considers itself, a soul is born. We move from one to the not two. Now, no two astrology charts are ever the same. And actually, I don't have to go beyond the sun, the moon, and the earth to prove that every moment celestially is absolutely unique and is experienced in a unique way in every unique space on earth. Yeah? So add the Mercury, the Venus, the Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, etc., and we get even more particular. You are such a unique being. But I don't need more than the way that the moon reflected sunlight to earth in the moment of your birth to show you that you are absolutely unique. And for me, this is what the moon is here to do. Just like the myths tell us that Diana delivered Apollo's birth, the moon delivers sunlight to earth. So the moon, this crescent of soul, as we describe it, is the unique reflection, the adaptation of the one and only thing, spirit. So I first kind of grew up, recently on a great teacher, Alan Watts, and I kind of felt this idea that we're all some little piece of spirit, right? And you put us all together and all the trees and squirrels and things, and then you have spirit. But spirit is indivisible. There's no piece of it, right? So what Hermes tells us, I believe, is it reflects upon itself. It adapts itself. It translates itself, and the one becomes the not two, which celestially we experience as the sun and the moon. So 1 + 1 is 2? No, because not in quality. Oneness is everything. But somehow that oneness, that spirit reflects upon itself and becomes the two, which are not two. Can't really tell which one of these things came first. And beautifully, every month, the moon departs from the sun and then comes back. Right? Or the moon snakes above and below the sun's path, always crossing, always separating and coming back, right? And this seems to say something very important about a reality we can't see with our eyeballs. And as all things have been and arose from one by the mediation of one, so all things have their birth from this one thing by adaptation. Some translations say, and arose from one by the meditation of one. The sun is its father, the moon its mother. The wind hath carried it in its belly, the earth its nurse. An amazing scripture, this ancient scripture, which is certainly an alchemical recipe, but there's something more to it. And it's interesting how we go from two, I believe, all things rose from this one thing by adaptation, to 4, the sun is its father, the moon its mother, the wind hath carried it in its belly, the earth its nurse. Here in the mandorla, the sacred almond, we can easily find 4. We connect the line of centers and the line of the intersections and find the cross of matter. And the idea here is that as soon as spirit reflects itself into soul in this unique way, it must incarnate. Right? So spirit can't grow, it's everything, and yet it will never stop growing because of miracles like you. Spirit reflected through soul into matter, into a place with the appearance of time and space. Why? Because it lets you make moves. grow. And as you grow, the one and only thing does. So I'm going to show you how to create an earth glyph, right? We grab the vesica piscis, 2 circles of the same radius centered on each other's circumference. The mandorla, the sacred almond, the gateway, the yoni. And then we tame one of these lines by sweeping a circle of half the size. What's that look like to you? See the eyeball there, right? Because only here in matter, in this place with the appearance of time and space, embodied blood pumping through the vein, can we see in our sky that somehow miraculously spirit and soul, sun and moon appear to be the same size. Because they are. See, earth here, right? So in this way, this earth glyph, the cross of matter inside the circle of spirit, born in this amazing gateway of creation. I'm excited to watch my daughter born, who will be born probably in June, and it's going to be like this, right? It's like incarnating, coming forth. Forth, which is the saxophone, of course. The fellow saxophonist in the back of the room. Why would I say that? Okay, well, let's play with an ancient riddle. If a tree falls in the woods and nobody's there to hear it, does it make a sound? Who's for yes, the tree makes a sound? All right, I would say no, the tree makes a noise. Okay, well, what's the difference between noise and sound? I mean, it's obviously subjective. For me, noise is the quantity of that thing that you and I call sound. It's the measurable bit. It vibrates the medium. You can take a ruler to it. You can measure its amplitude. That's volume. Its frequency. That's pitch. Yeah? But it doesn't make a sound, because a sound, for me, is the quality of harmony. And that's how you experience it. Yeah? So the saxophonist might be playing some beautiful thing. What does it do for you? Now, the saxophonist already can't make saxotone without a saxophone. So I want to use this as an instrument to explore the idea of the not two. And the third thing, right? And, use the sculptor and the stone if you prefer, or the mother and the father if you'd like, right? But how do we create? So the 2 and the 3 come together to make 4. And of course, all this is an expression of oneness. It's the only thing that ever was, is, and will be. The saxophone needs a saxophonist to make saxotone. These not two come together. There's a need. It's a love that connects saxophone and saxophonist, who together create saxotone, you see? Would love for you, as you walk the woods this next week, to just trip on that and everything you see. Where is the 2 and the 3 in them to make noise, all right? To make the 4, that's manifest, comes into this world. This is the cross of matter. This is earth. And other places like this, and not so much like this too. What is the 5? For me, the 5 is the experience of the noise. And in a sense, that's sound. Right? So what's this cat playing? There's some horn players that I'm going to run towards, and there's some that I'm going to run away from as fast as I can. This cat might bring you lots of joy. And your kids too, right? Or you might turn away. And maybe not because you don't dig it, but maybe just because it makes you super emo, and thinks about those cups that spilled over. Nobody talks about the 2 that are still full, I find. It reminds me to drink some water. It's highly encouraged. This is why I feel the 5 is kind of a lonely thing, right? like my beloved and I could go to a concert and we could both really dig it, and we could leave and say, I really dig it. I like this thing where they went to do. But we had entirely different experiences of it. Do you know what I mean? Like noise is a thing, but sound is yours and yours alone. And I hope you can feel in that fiveness in the two. This is John Coltrane's pentagonal wonder of musical play. And some people love Coltrane's music and some just can't handle it. He's one of my favorite examples of fifth harmonic things for those of you who speak music. And the five, especially the PHIVE, the golden number, it's in so many things, these small things, your ear, the baby in my partner's body right now, the sunflower, the cyclone, the Milky Way galaxy, it's so amazing fiveness. There's so much nature in this. And I imagine many of you here at Conscious Life Expo have done your geometry work and have studied the golden ratio and that. In the Fibonacci sequence, I would imagine as well. So the 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. I want to mention about this 13 because some of you might leave this thinking, I have triskaidekaphobia, I have a fear of the number of 13 or a hatred for it. That's not true. The 13, very importantly, does show up in this sacred Fibonacci code that helps us explore number and nature in many beautiful ways. But in a 12-sign zodiac, the fives just don't map. And I'm a big fan, if you speak astrology, of quintiles, which is the 72-degree aspect, we say. A fifth of a 360-degree circle is 72 degrees. But importantly, this was not one of the ancient aspects which are only opposition, trines, squares, and sextiles, because they connect whole signs in a 12-sign framework. Why 12? Arbitrary, right? I don't believe so at all. I believe creation creates in 12s, and I aim to show that to you. This doesn't mean fives shouldn't play, but they are kind of strange and unique. So Johannes Kepler is kind of famous for getting into fives, and was one of these cats who kind of said, well, why did we do 12 anyway? But, importantly, like here's an image of a quintile, that pink line connecting 0 degrees Aries to 12 degrees Gemini. All right. Well, a sextile will always connect Aries and Gemini. A quintile can connect degrees in Aries and Gemini, or in Aries and Cancer. And so that's kind of a beautiful and important thing there. So within our 12 framework, this first happens with 5. You can't divide 360 by 5 and get some whole number multiple of 30 degrees of signs. Right? That happens when you divide by 2 and 3 and 4 and 6 and 12, but not by 5, 7, 8, 9. And when Kepler got down with 5s and 8s, but he wasn't really feeling the 7s or the 11s or the 9s, and I don't think we need to turn this into a huge study of Johannes Kepler's astrology, but I will say, when he speaks about the 5s, he relates them to this other sacred science that we call harmony. The fifth harmonic, and I don't have time to talk about what harmonics are right now, but importantly, the fifth harmonic introduces the musical third, which brings joy and happiness, at least in the way that we tune today. Interestingly, it was a little bit different in Kepler's day, but I think we'll go a little bit too far. I'd love to explain why Kepler saw these notes or these scales for the 7 planets. Interestingly, Mercury, the only one that has all 7 scale tones. I think let's leave that there for now. But explore why 7 scale tones? Why 7? Why 12 notes in an octave? So 7 diatonic, 12 chromatic, and if you don't speak music, I sound even weirder than I have for the last half an hour of your life. So let's leave that there because the astrology itself is jargon enough, I think. But why 7? Why 12? And we're going to see actually some ways in which they relate. So let's rewind. We'll start at the beginning. I'll invite everybody to take a breath. As long as we're here in the void, you've been flooded with words. Hopefully the pictures tell 1,000 more, but more gently. From nothing, or was it everything? Source, spirit emerges, the one and only thing that ever was, is, and will be. As all things have been, and arose through the mediation of one. So all things have their birth in this one thing by adaptation. The one becomes two, which are not two. So here's one way we can image 3. Some call this the tripod of life, this image that's often used for Trinity. And here's one way we could show 4. I want to show you that in this particular approach to 4, we don't have symmetry, at least complete symmetry. Like that's a rectangle, not a square. And rectangles are cool, and squares are kind of squares, but there is something in the geometry study where we prefer symmetry when we explore number and nature and the quality of numbers. We saw 4 and we got to 4 this way. And I think that's really important, right? So it's the 4 matter being born through the gateway of these 2 who are not 2. So I don't know if that language makes sense yet, but at least you've heard it 40 times and are maybe getting my view of this thing, how I see the world through my human eye. In the yoni, in the vesica piscis, in the fish's bladder, in the mandorla, the sacred almond, we also get 3-ness, right? We can draw these triangles. We can actually draw 2 of them. And that gives us 4 points, actually. So 3 creates a plane, 2 dimensions, 4, 3 dimensions. So some say this is the most simple 3-dimensional form. This is one of the 5 Platonic solids known as tetrahedron, in which many of the ancient mystery schools associate with the element of fire. Fire, earth, air, and water. The hexahedron, or the cube, for earth. Why does that make sense? Well, the 7 directions. Right? So here shown as X, Y, and Z, but you have your east and west. Hold on, where's the elevator? You have your east and west, and north and south, the above and the below, right? So the 6 directions. But please don't forget the 7th, your heart, which is the first, the place where everything emerges from. So earth, the cube, kind of like the most solid of these Platonic solids. It's said to partner with the air, represented by the octahedron. Imagine many crystals have that shape, right? But also like the Great Pyramid of Giza. Attach another pyramid beneath it, right? And you have the octahedron, which has 8 faces and 6 points. Cube, 6 faces and 8 points. So these are pairing partners, earth and the air. And, we astrologers might expect, therefore, the water and the fire to pair in this way. They don't, because there's 5 of these Platonic solids. And this was a system that honored ether as the 5th element. Although, I think thinking of the ether as like a 0th element or the source element probably will get you closer to what it is and what we can do with it. It's connecting all of these things and all things. In that sense, it is spirit. It's represented in the Platonic solids by the dodecahedron, 12 pentagons. 12 faces, 20 points. The icosahedron, 20 triangles, 20 faces, 12 points. These are inverses of one another. The tetrahedron, representing the fire, is the inverse of itself. 4 points, 4 faces. And when we see this three-dimensionally, we come to the Merkaba, yeah? So here at the Conscious Life Expo, I imagine that's not a strange shape to many of you. You'll see them all over the place. I see that it's not centered on the screen, which is kind of freaking me out, but that's just my Virgo stuff, I guess. Anyway, you can see in this beautiful image that's said to be like the energetic expression of a human experience, the above and the below, yeah? I mean, we can see here in 2 dimensions the Seal of Solomon, the Star of David, the heart chakra, this beautiful image above and below that we see so much. It's actually what births the 4 element glyphs that we use in Western mysticism, the fire and the air, the water and the earth. I share them in that way, by the way, because that's density. So I always study that with a cup of tea, which I like to drink a lot of tea, right? The earth is like the most formed, gross thing. It's here in matter. It holds the water. The water steams, right, to the great fire above. That's in the water, right? Like the whole thing is this great, beautiful, toroidal, never-ending marriage of all 4. In astrology, in a sense, we have 2 sixes. This brings us into polarity. We have the diurnal signs and the nocturnal signs. You can see the earth in them. But I'm going to turn the fire and the air signs this way and invent a word called hexaplicity. In astrology, we often talk about polarity, 2-ness, triplicity, 3-ness, quadruplicity, 4-ness. Hexaplicity would be 6-ness, okay? We'll bring these 6s together, these 2 polarities, as they are called, the earth and the fire signs, which up and out, the earth and the water signs, which down and in. And we'll bring these 2 6s together to make the 12. So polarity, which I also like to spell this way, polarity, because it really honors not only the 2 6s, but also the 6 2s, right? So Aries and Libra, opposite. Taurus and Scorpio. Gemini, Sagittarius, opposite, yeah? Opposition kind of gets a tricky feeling when we hear that word, and traditionally it was known as the Saturnian aspect or view in astrology. But I think you will learn a lot about the depths of these signs if you honor that Aries and Libra are simply 2 sides of one thing. Taurus and Scorpio, 2 sides of one thing. And if you ask that question, what is the one thing that Gemini and Sagittarius are the 2 sides of? You really learn a lot more about Gemini and a lot more about Sagittarius and a lot more about spirit in that force. All right, anyway, so we have 6 2s, we have 2 6s. So 12 is this kind of magical thing. I mean, just simply like in the quantity of numbers, there's really fun things we can do with it. By the way, it's called the first abundant number by mathematicians. An abundant number is a number whose unique factors sum to a number greater than itself. All right, so for 12, which is expression of hexaplicity, quadruplicity, triplicity, and polarity like this, right? There's also 1 times 12. You could do 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 6 is a number greater than 12. It equals 16. And it's the first of the numbers that's called abundant for that reason. The numbers below and many others above are called deficient numbers. So this seems to be one of the reasons why, if 12 was simply kind of arbitrarily chosen for a number to zodiac with, you'd go with 12, right? Because it has triplicity, it has quadruplicity, it has hexaplicity, it has polarity. You look at 10, only polarity, right? Though it has this amazing 5 thing. But it doesn't do 4, and this seems essential. Because, my friends, like so many sacred systems of ancient wisdom traditions, the tropical zodiac is directionally aligned. In fact, I will suggest it's directionally defined. So who here, please show of hands, has heard that the tropical zodiac is nonsense because the signs don't align to the constellations like they used to? Well, I'm surprised that one hasn't gotten you yet. It will. I'm sorry to be the first one to say that. It's true that the tropical signs do not align to the constellations. The assumption by most astrologers, even tropical astrologers, is that the energy is coming here from these stars out there, and that these constellations like the lion or the crab have influence on us. I believe the ancients were witnessing the moon and the planets moving through these constellations, which don't divide the circle into 12 equal slices of 30 degrees each, like our signs do, because they were noticing that there were significant experiences here below on Earth when they were noticing things above. But I also think that they were simply learning to see something in the sky that was actually referencing something from deep beneath our feet, from this crystal core of Earth. All right, so let's play a little Earth astrology together. Get into the astronomy world. Here's a question. What is your primary astronomical experience? So when people want to speak with rationalists about why astrology is a thing, they will often go to the tides of the moon, right? Like the moon, sun, they pull on the waters of the earth. You're made of water too. They pull on you, which is a really cool thing to explore. It's also cool to explore why the moon has more tidal force than the sun, and I dig it. But I start with day and night. Yeah? I mean, the sun is always shining, and so half of Earth is always in the light, and half of Earth is always in the shadow. Flowers open to receive the light and close at night to dream and rest, and we should too. I think you have a very different energetic experience at 3 a.m. than you do at 3 p.m. Yeah? Depending on what the Leo King's doing. So day and night, right? This is the primary motion of astronomy, of astrology, the spinning of the earth, which causes the sun to rise and reach and rest and root. Now we can see this earth lift, the cross of matter, inside the circle of spirit, at least this cross of matter here in this motion. The plane of our daily rotation is the equator. Do you see that there? And then perpendicular to the equator is the rotational axis of Earth, which literally defines the cardinal directions. So this isn't about magnetic north and south. Those things migrate. This is like true north and south. It's just our spin axis, which I like to call the spine of Gaia, or the sword of our stone. We'll play with an ancient term in just a bit. In our day and age, we're quite fortunate to have a star that's aligned to the North Celestial Pole. And so when you go outside and you look north, at least in the northern hemisphere sky, you will see all of the stars circling about a central point, a central star. This is Polaris, North Star, called Polaris because it's aligned to the pole. These are ancient depictions of that time lapse we just watched, I believe. These spirals that we see all over the earth, watching the spiraling of the sky. The sky spins why? It's our experience of the earth spinning beneath our feet. So here's a different image for the spine of Gaia, the world tree, with the star on top. Polaris, North Star. Now, lights are typically put on trees like this at a different time of the year when the North Pole is leaning away from the sun. That's called winter solstice in the northern hemisphere, which I'll call southstice, and I'll show you why. Importantly, Winter solstice, northern hemisphere, maximum shadow, longest night is summer solstice in the southern hemisphere, right? So when people say that the tropical zodiac is a seasonal thing, it couldn't work globally. I mean, even honor how different the seasons are in London than they are in Hawaii. They're both northern hemisphere experiences. So I will say, like I did before, that the tropical zodiac is directionally aligned. In fact, it's directionally defined. The seasons come from the directions as well. But I do not believe that the tropical zodiac is about the stars. I know it's not. It's not aligned to the stars. It never can be. I don't believe it's a seasonal thing either. And there's a reason why I call this solstice time. You see, the trunk of the tree here is leaning towards the light. This happens once each year as Earth is orbiting the sun, right? At this time, in tropical astrology, we say the sun ingresses tropical Capricorn. It shines directly above Earth's Tropic of Capricorn. So I want you to take that with you too. Like, people will argue that this is the sun in Sagittarius because it's in the constellation of the Archer. When the sun ingresses tropical Capricorn, the sun shines above the Tropic of Capricorn. So when I have a lot of debates with astronomers, and I'll tell them that, and they'll say, like, the Tropic of Capricorn has nothing to do with astrology. I say, really? It's astronomy, friend. All right, so the Tropic of Capricorn is about 23.5 degrees south of the equator, because that 23.5 degrees is the tilt axis of Earth. It's actually more like 23.4, but if you say that, you have to honor that in the other direction, it's 66.6, and nobody likes that number. So 23.5 degrees, right? And this is the tilt angle. It's the angle between the equator, which is the plane of our daily motion, our rotation, and the ecliptic, which is the plane of our yearly motion, our orbit, right? This brings the winter, spring, summer, and fall of it all, right? This tilt of the Earth. And hopefully this is something you study. This is the reason for the seasons, yeah? So it's only once a year when the sun is shining above the Tropic of Capricorn. Now, this ecliptic plane, which is the plane described by Earth's orbit of the sun, or from our point of view, sun's orbit about us, if we extend that towards infinity, we find the constellations of the zodiac. So if the sun was watching Earth, and why not, it would see the Earth every day of our orbit, every day of our year, lensed against one of these backdrop constellations, all right? But I'll say that, well, in a sense, they're so far away, it kind of doesn't matter, but it also really does. The zodiac does not surround the sun. It surrounds the Earth. The ecliptic, it's the plane of the Earth-Sun experience. And, here we are on Earth. So, think globally, act locally. Think solar systemly, act geocentrically. Here on Earth, we experience the sun moving about us. Right? And therefore the sun moving through the constellations of this plane and through the signs. And constellations and signs are very different things. The constellations do not divide the circle into equal slices. In the signs, we have 12 30-degree slices, 12th parts, we call them. Constellations vary significantly in size, like the priestess, 47 degrees of arc, more than a sign and a half. The mighty ram, only like 15. So not only do the constellations and the signs align differently than they used to, and we'll have time to get there, I believe, and that's an important truth. And this is one of the reasons why rationalists of our day say that it's kind of like their first argument about why astrology is fake. Not only do the constellations not align to the equal signs today like they used to, the signs can never align perfectly to the constellations because the constellations vary significantly in size. Constellations and signs are very different things. There are star-based zodiacs, sidereal zodiacs. I honor them. Some are arguing for constellational zodiacs now. It's been a long time since anyone really used them. Some argue that this Ophiuchus 13th sign thing is ancient. It's not. I mean, I've seen no evidence of it. And importantly, people have a problem with this, that when the sun ingresses Capricorn, which you're looking at here, that it's like in between the Archer and the Scorpion. So why the heck would you call that Capricorn? It's a decent argument if you believe the signs are all about these constellations that were traditionally named for them. So here's the sun at December solstice or solstice. Why do I call it solstice? Because that's when the Earth's southern pole is leaning towards the sun, as it does once every year. That's when the sun ingressing tropical Capricorn shines directly above Earth's Tropic of Capricorn, which is the southern bounds of the sun's path. Okay, tropic comes from the Greek tropikos, which means turn around. Right? Solstice means the sun stops. Sun stops what? The sun stops moving south as it has for 6 months, and it turns around, tropikos, and then it starts going north. And in the northern hemisphere experience, right, Capricorn, the Tropic of Capricorn, is literally as far as the sun can get from us. So you've all had that experience when you walk towards a skyscraper and it appears to get taller, and you walk away and it appears to get shorter. The sun's like walking towards and away from us every year. The moon does it every month. The zodiac does it every day. And I better not go too far there because there's a lot more to do. So here we are, Earth's south pole leaning towards the sun, solstice time. Sun ingresses tropical Capricorn and shines directly above Earth's Tropic of Capricorn. And then, as we move through this year, we move from Capricorn to Aquarius to Pisces. All southern signs, all south of the equator. But then Sun ingresses Aries, and the 0 Aries point is above Earth's equator. Equinox, equator, yeah? So Aries, Taurus, and Gemini, surprised we're here, but okay. We're going to look at this geocentrically now. Just realizing I cut a bunch of things out to save some time, which is probably good. So now we're looking at Earth in the center. This image is oriented to Earth's equator. All right, so you see north up, right? Santa's place is at the top of the globe there. South is down. Right now, the sun is on Earth's equator. Do you see that? So the rainbow kind of pictured circle, that's the zodiac. That's the ecliptic. And I'm hoping you'll just kind of see that emanating from the heart of Earth. All right? If you look down to the bottom of the screen, you're going to see this sine wave thing. All right? And I don't want to get too nerdy here, but this is a declination wave. So declination is the measurement north or south of Earth's equator. All right? And this is like one of the keys to the tropical zodiac, that every year the sun crosses the equator here. That's ingressing Aries. It's above the equator, equinox time, and then the sun goes north to its northern bounds, the Tropic of Cancer. All right, so this has nothing to do with the crab, although I will say, very importantly, at this time of the year, the sun stops moving north and it starts going south. A way that you experience that if you watch sunrise is at solstice, northstice time, the sun rises furthest north of east and will set furthest north of west. At that time, the tropics turn around. The sun's going to start moving south for 6 months. Okay, so the sun, if you watch the sun setting on the western horizon, it does this throughout the course of the year. Who walks sideways? The crab. Where do they live? At the tides, which walk sideways. I don't think the crab was named for these stars, which we can barely see in the sky, because they're shaped like some crab. I think the stars that were once aligned to this place where the sun stops and turns around and walks sideways like a crab were called crab because of that. I'll show you another key to one of the signs right now. So super importantly this, while the sun entering tropical Capricorn has nothing to do with the constellation of the Crab anymore, and it's just true, and it's hard for astrologers, but it's real. This is the key to zero Cancer. It is the north point. Earth's north pole, Santa's place, is leaning towards that point of the ecliptic in every moment forever. So it's kind of how we're used to seeing globes in school, right? Like the north axis is leaning towards zero Cancer. So if the moon's going around the Earth, every month the moon gets to that north point. See that? Every 12 years-ish, Jupiter gets there. As the Earth is orbiting the sun, or from our point of view, sun's going around us, every year the sun ingresses tropical Capricorn, and when he does, he shines directly above Earth's Tropic of Capricorn. So really drill that home, because if you study astrology, you'll often hear people say astrology's fake because signs and constellations don't align. A fun thing to tell them is that they are directionally aligned, and that the Tropic of Capricorn is tropical Capricorn. Tropic of Cancer, tropical Cancer. All right. So one more piece here in our astrology world, we bring back in the world tree. And that North Star on top of the tree. So here's the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, but I can also just show them kind of as the north and south, right? Earth's North Pole leans towards zero Cancer. Earth's South Pole leans towards zero Capricorn. That's reality. These are the cardinal signs, as we call them today. Why? Because of the cardinal directions. And there, of course, are two others. Aries is the east point, Libra the west point. So we're going to go back here. We're going to put the directions on the screen. We'll watch the sun now move from its northern extreme, tropical Cancer, through Leo, Virgo, also northern signs that bring us to Libra, which is the other degree of the tropical zodiac that's on the equator. So balance, scales, equal day and equal night, right? But, and I'll warn you, once you see this, you can't go back. The Libra glyph is the setting sun. It's the ultimate image of westing. You know, in Egypt or in Kemet, they didn't have a word for death. They just called it westing. And what wests will then go through the underworld and rise again in the east. So Libra takes us into southern signs, which are south of the equator. Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, taking us to the southern extreme, Capricorn. And from the northern hemisphere point of view, that's the sun furthest from us, so lowest in the sky. And then like a goat, he begins his 6-month climb. So you see the goat there. Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, also south of the equator. They bring us back to the equator, where the sun is at Aries time, Aries ingress. This is the sun on the cross of the plane of day equator and the plane of year ecliptic. So sun on the cross, that sounds familiar? This is Easter time. And why is it Easter? Because the sun is literally due east of the center of Earth. The tropical zodiac is a directional thing. I want to speed a little bit past Easter and Passover stories. So I'll just say the sun is passing over the ecliptic at this time. The sun resurrected in the northern hemisphere experience. Days are longer than nights. But very importantly, when you look east, the eastern sky describes the Aries glyph. Signs that rise south of east head to the south. Stars that rise north of east head to the north, especially when you look from the equator. I believe this is why we see even older traditions honoring rams and rams facing east. So all of this, and I know it's a lot, just to say that the tropical zodiac, it's not about these stars. Like in the old zodiacs, like from Babylon, there was no ram constellation. There was a shepherd constellation. And if you learn the ram stars in the sky, I mean, they're cool, like Amal, Sheridan, et cetera, they don't look like a ram. What looks like a ram is how the eastern sky rises. It's the eternal fountain of youth. These glyphs that we use to depict the sign, it's all tropical expression, tropical astronomy. And the most important key to the tropical zodiac is this: it's not about stars, it's not about seasons. like so many systems of ancient wisdom traditions, the tropical signs are directionally aligned. So how do we get from 4 to 12? It's helpful to get back into the geometry, right? So in the new numbers. So not 10 because we need quadruplicity. Why? Because there's 4 directions. So 10's not going to cut it, and certainly neither is 13. So this isn't just some fear of 13. It's not just triskaidekaphobia that you're experiencing here, but I field so many emails and messages about the 13th sign and whatnot, and it gets a little tricky. And it's like, hey, do what you're going to do, but I advise you also to like sweep a compass and study some music. And you're going to play with see, create, hear, why creation creates in 12s. Actually, they said in the geometry tradition, when you put the compass in your hand, you become God. Like, that's a heavy statement. But the idea is that you're studying creating and creation through the act of creating. And the compass, as we will see, it 12s. So 13 has 13 times 1 and 1 times 13, right? All numbers have 1. Of course, it all starts with oneness, right? All right, we're going to go quickly here. 1 becomes 2, which are not 2. That, I feel, is the third thing. Right? That thing between the saxophone and the saxophonist, this need to create. Right? Where do babies come from? Right? There's a mom and a dad, and there's this need, there's this thing that brings them together. Do you feel like that, for me, is the 3? And it's a mysterious force. And for you astrologers out there, I think the trine is actually the most mystical thing and not often honored enough in this way. Okay, so we can get trine here too. We can make 3 this way. It's beautiful. This is actually the last stop on our seed of life journey that we're going to take together here, where we will see symmetry like this. It was already seen in the gateway, in the yoni, in the vesca piscis, in the mandorla, in the sacred almond, the 1 becoming the not 2. But bringing in 3 again, and I want to just show you this. The 3 has 7. Okay, so the Trinity and the 7 planets are 7 traditional lights for which the 7 days of the week are named. Let's bring in our 4th. So all of these circles will be stitched around the first. The 4th one gives us the snake's eye, which is also the cat's eye. Don't trust them. Just kidding, I love my cat so much. But here again, we're not seeing that symmetry, like this is a rectangle, not a square. However, that's kind of a 2-dimensional expression. If you see these as like 4 marbles sitting side by side, touching each other, right, you'll still see that symmetry there. And as you play with geometry, and I hope you will, I really encourage you to play on a plane on a page, but like see it in 3 dimensions and try to see it from every direction. Okay, kind of quickly now, there was a 5th circle, a 6th circle, and here's the 7th circle. This, I know you've seen, it's everywhere in the halls. We call this the seed of life, yes? And it's all over the world in ancient sites. Why? Because it is a natural creation. The 1 becomes 2. Or some say it's the 7 days of creation, or I guess there were 6 and a day of rest, yes? But who was creating? And importantly, remember where we started, around this original circle of spirit. I'm going to center this. And we're going to play with this in many ways. Coming back to that circle of spirit, we're going to breathe out here. These are called kissing numbers. On a plane, it's 7. So you can take 7 pennies, for example, and you can perfectly get 6 around the 1. In 3 dimensions, it's 13. So, here's a thumbs up for the 13 sign folks, but not really for 12. Why? Where's the 13th? It's the center. It's you. It's not 13. It's the 0 point. It's the source point. It's your heart. It's the center of the earth. Do you feel? Like I've heard a lot of 13 Zodiac proponents say that the 13th is the one among many. Well, that's a statement of 12ness. That's talking about the center. Do you see what I mean? In between. All right, so creation creates in 12s. And I want you to just let's breathe again. So we're going to take 4 breaths here. So maybe exhale. And here's our inhale and growing big. Oh wait, I'm going to get there. So this is a long inhale, I guess. All right, I feel that this is kind of how spirit breathes. Now I could do this with 12. And it's fun to make this beautiful mandala. You could do 24, by the way, and 48. But the 12 here, it really comes from 2 6s. Okay, so I want to show you how to make a zodiac. You make the seed of life, okay? So one circle, every circle has the same radius. They're all going to be centered around the circumference of the inner circle, yeah? That's how you make the seed of life. It's as simple as a flower, and that's a complicated thing. Notice that we have 2 flowers, 6 petals inside and 6 petals outside. These are the lunar and solar or nocturnal and diurnal signs of the zodiac. There's 6 signs that go down and in, 6 signs that go up and out. If I fill in these other areas, we actually get 24, which might be an indication of the hours of the day. That's also on your hands, by the way, which we'll play with in the workshop tomorrow. But I like to see the seed of life in this way, right? These 7 circles, which are actually 6 about 1. So we'll often draw like the 7 planets, traditional Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, on this kind of 7-pointed star. A fun thing about a 7-pointed star is you can't actually draw a perfect or regular 7-pointed star. But for me, this is the 7 actually. And what is that central thing? Is it the sun? Is it Earth with our moon? And there's a lot of different ways to play with it. All right, so back here in the 2 6s, I can draw what I call the octave circle, because like an octave in music, which has twice the frequency of the pitch an octave beneath, this outer circle that we'll trace now is twice the diameter of the inner circle. And why I like to do it this way is because now you get this beautiful image of not 2. Really, we see it in 2 ways, right? We have the nocturnal signs shown by the silver petals, the diurnal signs shown by the golden petals, and now we have the above the ground and below the ground. So usually I'll draw that with a flat line, but I like this because we experience light before sunrise. We experience deep shadow and darkness before sunset. If we draw lines through those inner petals and through the outer petals, now we have made the 12-spoked wheel. So this is how you create a zodiac with a compass and a wheel, or a compass and rule, the 2 geometers tools. And I'll just say this is how the zodiac was created here on Earth and everywhere that has a zodiac, and everything does. All right, I'm going to draw what's called the quincunx star now. Because in this beautiful star, we see many things, like the trines, the earth signs, the water signs, the air signs, the fire signs. That's not the order that we're used to hearing them or teaching them in astrology, but that's because 2 of these go up and out and 2 go down and in. So also showing polarity in those densities. And you can see the squares here as well, right? So the cardinal, fixed, and mutable signs, as today we call those quadruplicities. So this is how I birthed this mandala. And it's not some arbitrary thing, right? So the 4 signs, the cardinal signs as cusp, they're aligned to Earth's cardinal directions. And I'll show you why that brings me to something strange at the core of the Earth. But importantly, it's that seed of life design that takes us from the 1 to the 2, through the 3 kind of to the 4 to the 12. And that's a strange way to count, but hopefully the images on the screen have helped you see this and why we read in the oldest scripture known, the Rig Veda, O Agni, which means the fire. The 12-spoked wheel of order rolls around and around the sky and never ages. Creation creates in 12. That's why we have 12 tones and a musical octave, and I could go on and on. Okay, so let's just talk about these 13 signs that he'll be bad in bed, especially Ophiuchus. So some of this 13 sign stuff, it actually comes from like Cosmo magazine and other such. But like in this article by Tess Coleman, we'll read here, the constellation named Ophiuchus, NASA reports, was conveniently ignored by the Babylonians when they made their zodiac calendar more than 3,000 years ago. And sadly, like NASA actually did say that in a place called Space Place, which is their page for educating children, where, you know, the kids get to learn things like astrology is not science and Leo Schmeo and whatnot. But, you know, and this article actually makes some good points. It makes some really bad points. I'll highlight one here for you. And just listen to this kind of arrogant view of the rationalists of our day, right? In ancient times, astronomers did not fully understand how Earth, the sun, and the stars moved, which implies that we do today, right? I don't think so. Nor did they have any idea the universe is so vast. But they were keen observers of the sky, and they tried very hard to make sense of it. People had already imagined that the constellations might be important symbols, telling stories of their gods and other myths. It was not a big step to suppose that the changing positions of the constellations at different times of the years might be important to people and events on Earth. People who like things like, I don't know, food? Because whether you're nomadic or you're agricultural, you better keep the days, y'all. And the stars help us do this. So I have a hard time with this article for many reasons, but this is a statement there. So it says, when the Babylonians first invented the 12 signs of the Zodiac, a birthday between about July 23rd and August 22nd meant being born under the constellation Leo. Now, 3,000 years later, the sky has shifted because Earth's axis doesn't point in quite the same direction. Now, that's true, and in our day and age, somebody born in that range will have the sun aligned with the celestial crab. But it will still be north, west of the Earth, which is directional Leo, tropical Leo. So the signs and the constellations don't align. It's a very good point. A bad point that they've made is that the Babylonians ignored Ophiuchus. So here's just an image of signs and constellations not aligning from a different way. Here's our feet on the ground. This is Stellarium astronomy software, which is amazing. And we're seeing the sun in the galactic core on December 21st. So this is the sun ingressing tropical Capricorn. It's above the Tropic of Capricorn, but it's in the constellation of the Archer, or some say Ophiuchus. All right? Now, the whole Ophiuchus thing, like the Babylonians didn't have a constellation Ophiuchus. They had one called the Sitting Gods, which we don't know for sure, but it might be there. And they might have had snakes for feet, which is a cool thing to know. And the Milky Way galaxy there itself is the serpent that bites its own tail. And there's so much to the mysteries. And I'm not saying Ophiuchus is not amazingly cool. I would actually suggest that he's one of the most important constellations of our day and age. And I'll speak about that a little bit at the panel today. But he's not a sign because creation creates in 12s. This whole NASA thing, and then Cosmo, and now sadly like Gaia TV, it's coming from these boundary divisions of the constellations created by the International Astronomical Union in 1929. It's not ancient, and those guys hate astrology and publicly denounce astrology for fun. So why should we take any astrological advice from these cats? They cut out the heart of the scorpion, the 15th brightest star from the ecliptic plane, the path of the sun, even though it's so close. And anyway, I love 13, but I'll say it's the inside of the kissing numbers because creation creates in 12s. I have a few more minutes, so I think we'll just kind of go quickly. I just want to show you this. If we're playing Ophiuchus, play Orion too. They are two constellations who always point to the Milky Way. Orion pointing to the Milky Way and Ophiuchus standing on it. Now, importantly, in our day and age, a day and age of galactic alignment, the solstice points, tropical Capricorn, is coming to Ophiuchus's foot, coming to the galactic center. Like, it's a very important thing. Orion is pointing his club to the Tropic of Cancer. That won't happen again like this for 26,000 years. This is much bigger than the Pluto into Aquarius, which is amazing and awesome in all these things. This is the framework that we're living in that's really causing an amazing awakening, a weirding experience here on Earth. And I'd love to talk more about it, but let's end in the heart where we started, all right? So a little bit more of the crunchy music. That's Eric Deutsch on piano and myself on saxophone. Eric and I make songs of birth charts, 12-minute songs. And so I turn the charts into musical harmony and then send them to Eric, who's just a master pianist. And he has all these limitations. He's not allowed to play all the notes because they might not all be shown in your chart or mine. And then I send them these kind of symbolic codes to create songs of the soul. So if you're interested in that or hearing more about my work or receiving a reading with me, because I do all this, but also kind of astrology first, GeminiBrett.com is where you can find me. All right, so the last thing to do here, we're back in this beautiful image of polarity, the inner signs, and the outer signs, shown moonwise and sunwise for those who speak the language, some inside the circle of spirit and some outside, if you will. I was loved finding this. This is one of Dave Broglie's images for the the atom. And it really speaks, I think, to hexaplicity. Hexagons are the bestigons. Search that on YouTube. You'll find a fun video. It's one of the reasons why. The radius of a circle is equal to the side length of the regular hexagon that it inscribes. So in the tradition, we call curves, quality, immeasurable, the goddess, and lines, the other thing. And the hexagon's kind of like the closest that the line can get to the perfect form, the sphere, the heavenly form, the goddess. But they're cool, they cube. Queen Bee knows about hexagons. They're amazing. And you'll see one that's 3 times the size of Earth on the North Pole of Saturn. And it stays aligned to Saturn's cardinal directions. There is on Jupiter, wait, what's that crystal doing there? On Jupiter, a hexagonal form of 6 storms at the South Pole. I believe Saturn and Jupiter, these gas giants, just happen to be made of the kind of stuff that allows a surface expression of something that lies at their core that I believe is at the center of all planets. So this is from Carnegie Institute of Washington. It was published in Nature and some other places. And there's this question, could an iron ball 1,500 miles across be a single crystal at the center of the Earth? So I'll read really quickly because we're out of time. Hexagonal crystals have a unique directionality, which must be aligned and oriented with Earth's spin axis, and therefore with the tropical zodiac, for every crystal in the inner core of Earth. If all the crystals must point in the same direction, why not one big crystal? The results published in Science offer the simplest, most convincing explanation yet put forward for the observed seismic data and have stirred new thinking about the inner core. Could an iron ball 1,500 miles across be a single crystal? Yeah, and it wouldn't be a ball. It's hexagonal. So silly picture here, but this hopefully will get the point across. I firmly believe that Earth and all planets like Saturn or Jupiter have a hexagonal core. I think stars do. It's all crystals, y'all. And so as the sun gets around Earth every year, it's just moving across the faces and the points of the crystal, which create a 12-fold energy grid that looks like that seed of life that we've been playing with. For me, this is what the tropical zodiac, Earth zodiac, or Saturn zodiac, or Jupiter zodiac, or TRAPPIST-E2 zodiac is all about. And that the astrology on each of these planets would be entirely unique because the way that their days and years work are unique to the planet themselves. So if you want to have a different experience, come back to Saturn next time. But here you are on Earth, and thanks for spending some time with me at the School of Earth Astrology. I hope your head's okay, and may this offer seeds that will sprout over time in your beautiful heart. This has been the Tropical Zodiac Earth Sacred Geometry. Thank you. And friends, you did 260 slides in like 88 minutes. So I honor you. If you come to the workshop tomorrow, it's going to be much more of an experiential thing and a slower thing. That's tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Nighttime is the right time, so we can actually get outside and see a few stars, even this close to the airport, and learn how to tell time with our hands and much more. Thanks again. Whirlwind. Yeah. Hold on just a second. Let me wrap up. Hello. Hi. I heard you were here.
Yeah, I saw you the first. Yeah, that was
Wait,
weird.
did we see each
We
other?
didn't like talk. You sat behind me and announced something about AstroSeek website for fertility for
I
Kaylin.
didn't see you in there.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, I'm Brett.